Luxor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Welcome to day 5, you guys. We're in Luxor. Today is our travel day, and we traveled from Cairo to Luxor by plane. And when we got there, our flight was a little bit delayed. That's okay. But our first stop of the day was the bus, our handy dandy bus. And then we got right on over to the Karnak Temple. Just to give you guys some brief history, the Karnak Temple took over 1,000 years to build between the 12th and 20th dynasty, and at its peak, it was probably the largest and most important religious complex in ancient Egypt. But don't take my history lesson, because A, it's not that fun, and B, you're not in Egypt. But if you book with EF Ultimate Breaks, you can hear from an actual Egyptologist who will walk you through and give you such amazing information and facts and just be able to answer all your questions, and you get to see these incredible temples up close. After we finished up at the Karnak Temple, we got back on the bus and we headed on over to the Luxor Temple for sunset. And this was absolutely stunning since it's located right on the Nile River as well. It truly was breathtaking. To give a brief history lesson on the Luxor Temple, though mine is definitely not as cool as if going there, it took over hundreds of years for it to be constructed, mainly by Amenhotep III, Ramses II, and Tutankhamun, and many other pharaohs. The Luxor Temple was one of the largest and most significant religious centers in ancient Egypt. In the next clip, you're going to hear the call to prayer, and after it, I'll explain more about it.
Each one is holding a flower.
So the call to prayer happens 5 times in the Muslim religion, but we'd only hear the sound 3 times. It would happen at sunrise, around like lunchtime, and then we'd also hear it at dusk. And I wanted to educate on it just because I thought it was really interesting, and it actually wasn't something I was expecting to hear or to witness while we were there. Room tour! This is our hotel in Luxor. For full transparency, this was probably my least favorite. I thought the bed was really uncomfortable. And I don't know, since I'm really there to sleep, that's kind of like a big thing for me. Yeah, but this view was killer. This was an amazing view. I know this is at night, and then I do have one at daytime, but this was the Nile River. Very cool. Good morning. We are off to our morning balloon ride. It is, you know, you could think 8 p.m.
Too early.
But it is indeed 4 a.m. Proof. Oh, not proof. I will fix it and I will show you proof later. Anyway, it's been a while since a check-in. So, wish us luck. The proof. This trip is flying by. It's already day 6, and let me tell you, this day was jam-packed. We started up at 4 a.m. for our hot air balloon ride, which is an extra excursion that you can book with EF. And let me tell you, highly, highly, highly recommend. This was absolutely incredible. This was the most amazing experience of my life. Truly once in a lifetime. The view, oh my goodness, it was so worth the money, so worth the time. I will never regret this in my life.
Oh my gosh.
This was an incredibly busy day. Probably the best, but incredibly busy. So after our early morning hot air balloon ride, we got back on our felucca boat and headed back to the hotel for breakfast. and then we headed up to the Valley of the Kings. Let me tell you, the Valley of the Kings is hot. Our first tomb of the day was the tomb of Merneptah. He was a pharaoh of ancient Egypt. And if you don't know, the Valley of the Kings is made up of a bunch of tombs of a bunch of different pharaohs. So my favorite part about this next clip is that it looks like a mummy. I just wanted to share that. The next tomb was Ramses III. I really liked this tomb personally. I liked the use of color, and this was an extremely large tomb actually, so it was really cool to see. The Valley of the Kings is no joke, and it's definitely not for the faint of heart. It was really, really hot when we were there. This was probably the first time we really felt the heat in Egypt, so I really recommend bringing like electrolytes and water. Here's a little goofy video of me and Abby. Water. The next tomb was the tomb of Tutankhamun, also known as King Tut. I had to pay extra for this, but I was so excited! This is your warning. There will be a mummy in the next clip, also known as a dead body, also formerly known as King Tut.
Bye guys.
I know. Goodbye, Valley of the Kings.
Alright, now I think about it. Was he like, it's really not safe?
So we left the Valley of the Kings, and then we got back on the bus, and we headed on over to the Temple of Hatshepsut. Hatshepsut was a true woman of power. Again, another brief history lesson with me, though it's not as cool. Hatshepsut was one of only 3 women to ever become pharaoh in 3,000 years of ancient Egyptian history. But she was the first to attain the full power of the pharaoh position. This day is truly jam-packed, I'm not kidding. We're not even close to being done yet. But we left the Temple of Hatshepsut, got back on the bus, and we headed to lunch. After lunch, we were given the option to go buy jewelry, and this is one of my favorite souvenirs I brought home was my cartouche. I ended up buying 3 of them, one for my sister and my friend and myself. Our day was definitely not over, but it was coming to a close as we took a sunset felucca ride across the Nile River. They had tea and snacks and live music. It was so pretty. And just like that, our time in Luxor has come to an end, and we're off to Hurghada. I can't wait for you guys to see the last part of this trip. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.